Hello, dear friends. Hello, dear earth holders. Welcome to each and every one of us here. Hello to everyone. My name is Kia. You can't see me on the screen today. My camera is not working, but I hope you can feel me smiling through my screen here. I'm happy to be your tech host for today's call. Beautiful wishes of a wonderful new year to everyone here. It's really lovely that we're beginning the year as a Sangha. I feel a lot of joy seeing all your faces on my screen and knowing that we have all arrived and creating a beautiful refuge for all of us to arrive in today. I'm happy to introduce our Dharma teacher for today, and some of you may know her. So her name is Joanne Rosen, and the topic for today's call, for today's practice is mindfulness, refuge or escape, activism, purpose or vehicle. Yeah, so our dear Joanne Rosen's identity at the moment, and she writes, she's mainly questioning these many things: age, sage or elderly, gender expression, what makes one a teacher or preacher, questioning what mindfulness is it a refuge or escape, activism, purpose or vehicle, thinking about obligation, responsibility, thinking of advantage, is it earned or inherited, balancing chutzpah and humility. Some facts about Joanne. Joanne has lived all ages between 0 to 75, is a parent, a partner, grand and great-grandparent, a beloved Dharma teacher, psychotherapist, a resiliency trainer, and of Jewish roots. Joanne's current focus is learning and passing on the learning of maintaining a balanced body and mind to recognize and do the work that is meant for us to do. Joanne is a lover of good music and good mischief. And so with that, just with great joy that I can pass the mic on now to Joanne. Joanne, thank you for being with us here. Kia bowing out.
Thank you all for joining today. I'm majorly struck by how nervous I can get before a talk, and then looking at your live faces is so calming. And I don't even know many of you. I think that says something for our human condition, that the power of people being present is in itself a healing. I want you to feel free to be yourselves in the next few minutes. If that means lying down or going off screen, that's okay with me. I do want to see some faces, so I know you're there. But do what supports your practice. If you hear something that doesn't work for you, then don't work it. I think that in order to be our best selves, we need to feel like we have a choice in what we're doing. So I'd like to start out with a short sit and 3 bells, and then we'll see where we go from there. So Kia, if you could allow us 3 bells. Bringing your attention to your posture and your body in general. And sit in a way that's comfortable, and at the same time alert. You can play around with slouching and not slouching, sitting on the edge of your chair or leaning back. And notice where you feel awake and relaxed. And knowing that we come here from many places to bring in the awareness of our inheritance, of the inheritance that was given us from our land ancestors, the first peoples to be connected to the earth that supports you, and all their knowledge and their wisdom of how to apply that knowledge to bring harmony to the land. And just knowing that whether you're aware or not, you have benefited from the millennia of people living, inhabiting the land that supports you. And including your blood ancestors who must have had an unbroken line of resilience back to the beginning of life, and you've inherited all that resilience. Surviving, finding ways to go from generation to generation. Determination, courage. It's in there. It's your rightful inheritance. Bringing in your spiritual ancestors, perhaps from many streams. Breathing in the understanding that you too have inherited that wisdom, that determination, that courage. Knowing that we're human, there's a lot of other stuff that we've inherited, and we've either transcended some or not. And in this moment, just wanting to focus on the rich inheritance of land and flesh and spirit. Noticing in our bodies where we feel an openness, a freshness, an aliveness. You may get in touch with that by noticing where you're supported, where the body is supported. You may be in touch simply through the breath. You may be supported by bringing in the image of something that creates a sense of well-being. A person, a place, a path. Just resting. And setting aside the thoughts that intrude, knowing that they'll come back. Knowing that this state of relative calm or rest or stopping is the foundation upon which we build our practice. It's not a place of bliss that we hang out indefinitely, even if we could. It's an immune builder, a rejuvenator for our bodies, for our minds, for our hearts. And that spending time here frequently, whether it's for an hour or for 3 breaths, it's nourishing us. Down through our bones. And it nourishes others around us. Just noticing what's happening in the body right now, no matter what it is. Locating some place in the body that feels open and well, relaxed. And seeing if we can hold our attention there for a few breaths. Just allowing our complete awareness to be engulfed by what's working, what's wholesome. And when you feel ready, reminding yourself that you can revisit this state whenever you care to. Can bring yourself slowly back into the room with the sound of the bell. So when I wrote those wonderful ideas that I had about what I would talk about, that was ancient history, at least a week ago. And the world feels very different, and I can't give that talk. So Oh, well, this morning I was looking at yet more footage of the wreckage in the Capitol building, and I immediately got stirred up. And I knew this was not the time to get stirred up because I need to have my mind present for this talk. And I know well that I get stirred up very easily. I have an inheritance of a canary-like nervous system, and I have to do a lot of work to calm myself. For decades, I meditated with my fingernails gripping the edge of my cushion, and felt a lot of discouragement, self-doubt, even shame that I was a fake meditator, an imposter. And then I began learning about neuroscience and the nervous system and realized I had this vehicle that I was supposed to drive, and I never got any driving lessons. I didn't even know how the thing worked. Uh, and so it was a great liberation for me to begin to understand why I'm functioning just the way I was meant to function and how I could function a little better with some driving lessons. So, Kia, if you could put that image on the screen. This is an image that I've been enjoying from Kazu Haga, who has created the East Point Peace Academy. It's a picture of our nervous system, and probably lots of you are well familiar with this, but because it's so liberating for me, I just want to whiz through it and on to other parts of this talk. The little green circle is that calm area that we just visited, perhaps, or at least inch towards with our sitting. And it's commonly thought that this is the whole point of this right here. Do you see my cursor? Can you see it? Okay, great. So this is where we think we ought to be every time we sit. And this is a very nourishing spot. And it's what Thai talks about stopping and calming. And the Anapanasati Sutra helps us to access this part. The same with the Satipatthana Sutra that encourages us to have a roadmap to get to this place. And then what Tai says, okay, you're here. Now you need to go out a little bit. This is what Kazu calls the stretch zone. This yellow and the green are the part of the nervous system uh, basically called the thinking brain. It's the mammalian development, and it's responsible for us being able to remember what happened in a story type form, have language, uh, relate to each other, know what's going on, have an overview, have mindfulness. This whole yellow and green area are areas of mindfulness. This part is the reptilian brain, and its job is to keep us safe. And it's always watching to see whether something in our history is familiar because it's dangerous or because it's safe. And it's a gatekeeper. And this part of our nervous system, does not help us think clearly, does not help us see things accurately. And it is preparing us for action of fight, flight, or freeze. And we can tell when we're in this zone because our body is going crazy. And I'm imagining that you all know when you're in this zone and when you're in this zone, if you're able to pay attention from this zone. It's kind of a catch-22. But when we're out here, we're not in what they call our right mind or our right view. So if you bring to mind some situation that's activating, just notice, just glance at it, whether it's a difficult person or a difficult situation, and notice what the body does on a micro level, just from bringing up the thought. Some minor annoyance can spring you out here. And so our practice is not to stay here, but to begin to know how to go from this when we're aware of our body. When we practice being aware of our body on a regular basis, we're going to notice, uh-oh, I'm out here. And even the noticing is inching us back in here. And this arena, this yellow arena, is our working area. That once we have watered the wholesome seeds, then we get ready to do our work, which is to come out here and notice, okay, from here, I can see things clearly. And from here, I cannot. So there are many, many meditations that bring us from here back to here where we can see clearly. So right now, I want to invite you, let's take this off the screen so we can see each other again. And to just bring to mind something that's difficult and to notice and to put your hand on that part of the body that gets activated. Just notice it. And to know that this is the topic that I generally like to talk about, of how to go from that dysregulated place back into a more regulated place. But I want to kind of give an overview of how we as activists or whatever you want to call people who work in their own ways for social change, how we can kind of envision a roadmap through the difficulties. So step one is always to have a base of calming, whether it's on the cushion or off of the cushion. So we want to develop a lifestyle where we're vigilant for the wholesome. Because as we go through our day, there are many more opportunities than just sitting on the cushion to notice a tiny plant pushing up through the crack in the sidewalk. And that if whatever that little delight or wholesomeness or connection is, if we pause there for 3 or 4 breaths and just really soak in it, that is going to help strengthen our ability to stay in that mindful zone more easily, and to be aware of when we're out of it more frequently. So stopping, that's step one. Step two, and I want to credit here the Buddha for his brilliance, Thai for the way he can make the very complicated simple and accessible and relevant to our lives. Brian Stevenson and Joanna Macy, who have, interestingly enough, created their own little roadmaps that are very similar. So the first step, gratitude, calming. The second step is for us to develop tools to become comfortable with discomfort. That at best, this is a very messy business, and that we all need to somehow increase our tolerance for discomfort and for finding soothing ways so that we can stay in the mess. I live with a community or my neighbors of practice, and we are messy. We get into all kinds of difficulties, and we have the practice which binds us together. We have the agreements that we'll work on not talking while we're angry. And when I say angry, I mean the red angry, not the yellow angry. That there are times when we can speak being in touch with our anger, but it isn't the kind of anger that is drowning us, that is creating a clouded mind. It's a clarity. So that yellow zone, we're going to have all kinds of feelings of sorrow, fear, anger, frustration, but not so much that it kicks us out completely. So the second step of being determined to stretch that zone of knowing how to handle our discomfort so that we can get in touch with the caring and the pain that goes along with caring. That there isn't anything that we don't care about deeply right now that isn't in some way threatened, whether it's on a physical level or on a spiritual level. So that being able to care about something deeply is related to how much discomfort we can handle in a stabilized way. Otherwise, we're going to either run away, or we're going to be immobilized, or we're going to fight in a way that's not productive. Once we are able to calm ourselves enough to be in that yellow curious zone, then we come to a third step, which is really looking at our narratives, the stories that we create, and then the reactivity or the responsibility that we take from those stories. And are those stories accurate? The other morning, I woke up, I looked at the clock, it was 3:54, and I felt very refreshed. I laid there for a little while and I thought, oh, I'm going to get up and do my thing. And I noticed that there was this kind of unusual light outside. There was heavy fog and kind of a glow. And I thought, it's not time for the moon to be so full. I wonder whether that's the light bouncing off of this or that. I made all kinds of stories up. And then I looked at a different clock and it was 7:15. it never occurred to me that my initial hit was way off, even though it was getting light outside, that I kept tweaking my story to fit my first impression. And then I thought, whoa, this is familiar. And this is not a particularly important thing. But when I look at the people that I have difficulty with, I notice if I'm in that yellow zone, to be honest, I am watching for the things they do that annoy me, and I'm keeping track of them. I am not keeping track of all the other things. I am building a narrative that is strong because my reality is whatever I'm looking at. If I'm looking at something only this big, then that's it. If I'm looking at this, that's a whole different story. I'm only looking at the things I don't like. And I'm very sure that I am right. So that goes for my interpersonal relationships. What about my narratives about society, about different kinds of people, about people that I don't really have a big view of because I don't get intimate with them? I don't know what their lives are like. So, in learning more and more about Black Lives Matter over the years, I have finally become astounded at the narratives that I have created for myself. And I ask myself, why? Why did I create these narratives when my belief system isn't, I thought, what I thought it was? And I started looking at my own ancestry and why was I so busy or deluded or not interested in the civil rights movement? And I began to look at my Jewish roots and the inheritance that I got from grandparents who were escaping genocide. And I could see how that impacted me in my childhood and how I remember redlining. I remember it vividly, but I remember the childhood story about it, not the reality of it. And so Black Lives Matter has challenged me to look back at that line of narratives and how they build on each other and how deluded I have been. So, what is it going to take for me to let go of those stories that I have become attached to more and more as I add pieces of information to my pile, but I am not involved with people. If I get up close and personal, as Brian Stevenson says, some of those narratives begin to crack and fall away. And I have to say, whoa, this is kind of shaking to me. But I'm delighted to see that because I'm a progressive. I want to see racial equity. But what about the 74 million? What about my narrative about them? And what do I have to contribute to this turning, this change that we need to make? Because it would be a lot easier if there were only 34 million or 12 million. And how can I start with even one person? And I started by looking at certain kinds of news that I'm not accustomed to looking at and practicing calming my body while I watch that, noticing what my narratives are, just bringing it into my face in hopes that I can talk to the guy who fixes my well and ask him how he's feeling about the situation here from a place of calm and caring and getting to know him rather than pushing my narrative, which is not complete. So we've got calming. Once we're calm, we can start looking at how to get uncomfortable in a calm way. Then we can look at, what do we really think? What is right view in this situation? How can I get really intimate with what I'm looking at so I can be brave enough to see that I don't have the whole picture? And then I need to go diligently and work at keeping up my hope. I need to be um, focusing more on the successes than on the failures, really noticing little increments of openness that I create in myself, that my purpose is to create enough wisdom in myself, to gather enough wisdom to be impactful. So supporting each other, doing things in groups. As I said, just looking at you, my body calms down. Working with people, if I learn the skills to work harmoniously, and I can hang in there with some extra discomfort because I love something and I want to make it safe or better or healthy, then I can sit and ask myself, what are my strengths? So, what are my talents? What are my resources and my accompaniment? So, I want to begin to close by us going inside and saying, what are my strengths? What are the ways that I do know how to calm myself? What are the areas that I have grown an ability to be more uncomfortable and still grounded? What am I gaining from this path that I'm walking on that I can put to work in the things that I really care about? Who can I collaborate with, find support from? So bringing our strengths, our little successes, think of just one little success. Who are my supporters? Are my collaborators? And notice how that sits in the body. This wisdom that we're gathering up by walking this path. And know that there's an inner calling that perhaps you're already very in touch with, that might find more strength by focusing on what you do have to offer and knowing that it's a messy business. We expect it to be messy. We don't have to be discouraged when it is. We have to hang in there, and we have to have ways in which we nourish ourselves and fortify ourselves with our practice, with our connections to our inheritances, to our environment, and to each other, so that we can continue this work regardless of outcome. That we are a very tiny element, that there are many other factors besides us that make our work successful, and who knows when it will be successful or in what form it will bring success. So we do what we can in the most mindful way that we're able in this moment, and then we let go of the outcome. We don't do it because we expect it to bring a particular result. We do it because that's our integrity, that's our dignity, that's our purpose. I think that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Teacher Joanne. Thank you so much.
Good.
I'd like to offer a bell to close your talk.
I'd just like to offer my email. I'd be very happy to hear from any of you. And so I stuck it in the chat. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Dear Nomi, if you're there, at this point I'll turn them over to you.
I'm sorry, but I forgot that I had a song that I wanted to offer at the end.
Yes. Joanne, would you like me to play it before we close instead of before starting the Dharma sharing?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I recognize something that I wanted to just like put a little more spin on. That while we can be mindfully and skillfully expressive of our anger, that the courage and the fearlessness for me come from allowing myself to get really intimate and caring about people or places, that it's the love and the caring, the deep caring, that help overcome the fear and the sadness, not the anger for me. That if I keep that front and center, it's much easier to continue the work. So a love of the land, a love of the people, rather than a focus on those elements that create harm and destruction, will propel us through. That doesn't mean we don't confront those other things, but it's not where we gather our energy from that, and that, of course, the insight of our interbeing. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I would love to hear the music for myself.
Thank you, Joanne. I bow to you. I'll share my screen now. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these minds. defeated. Love in this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these hearts. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. So we've come to the end of our online Sangha, the first of the new year. Deep gratitude to Joanne for your wise words today. Deep gratitude to each one who's here, who showed up and who's offered their presence to all of us. I'm sure.